Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and wow, some of you were asking me to look into the new Way Forward Act. Well, I've done a little bit of looking into it. I haven't had a chance to go into it too much in depth, but I do want to bring what I found to your attention so that you can be aware of what's going on. And before I start, I want to point something out. I put a pinned post on the last video, but I wanted to make sure you understood. When Senator Josh Hawley was speaking, he starts out by saying, Madam President. Don't panic, folks. That's just how the Senate works. Because what they do is they have the Vice President of the United States serves as President of the Senate, and therefore its presiding officer. In the Vice President's absence, which is most of the time because he's off doing his Vice President things, the President Pro Tempore, who is generally, but not always, the most senior member of the majority party, presides or designates other senators from the majority party to take the chair. Senators must direct all remarks to the presiding officer, whom they address as Mr. President or Madam President. Now, Grassley is the presiding officer. I mean, he is the President Pro Tem. So usually he designates it to somebody. I mean, he doesn't sit up there the whole time. In fact, I don't know that I've even seen him sitting there presiding over anything. But the same thing happens in the House with the Speaker. Nancy Pelosi technically is supposed to oversee all of the proceedings. But, you can't just sit there. They do have other jobs to do. And so they usually appoint somebody else to take periods of time. And I'm not sure exactly which one it was that he was referring to because it was too far away and I couldn't see her and I didn't hear enough of her to place the voice. So I'm not sure. It could have been like Marsha Blackburn or somebody. It was blonde, I believe. So I don't know which one it was, but there you go. That's the reason behind it. So no, don't panic. Madam President was the correct thing he had to say there. All right, now let's get into the heart of this. I tried to find the clip of Tucker Carlson from Thursday night, and I couldn't find it. But I did find this Breitbart article, which kind of has the transcript of it. Tucker Carlson did a segment, well, it was kind of his opening, I think, on this radical new Way Forward Act protecting criminals from deportation. Makes the Green New Deal look like the status quo. Here's the actual transcript of the whole thing if you want to see it. I don't know if that is the whole thing or not because I haven't seen the actual clip here. All I did was read this part of it. So, he's pointing this bill out that has been going kind of unnoticed. But in some ways, it hasn't been around long enough for it really to be noticed much. So I understand why it's not getting a lot of notice at this point. But it is something people need to be aware of. And he goes through and he mentions it, that it's called the New Way Forward Act. And it's received almost no publicity, and that's unfortunate as well as revealing. The legislation is sponsored by 44 House Democrats, including Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It is roughly 4,400 words long. That means it's almost exactly as long as the U.S. Constitution. Like the Constitution, it is designed to create a whole new country. The bill would entirely remake immigration system with the explicit purpose of ensuring that criminals are allowed to move to the United States and settle here permanently with immunity. Let me summarize on this. Now, I'll leave the link to this down below. You can read the whole thing for yourself. But the deal is the Democrats want to decriminalize illegal immigration. So there would be no such thing as coming across our border illegally. Imagine, what that would do. Essentially, it makes it open borders, and there is no crime connected to crossing our border without proper papers and without the proper admission. Yeah, that's what they want. They want it that way because, remember, the overall goal that's behind the scenes is to strip the United States of its wealth and power. So if you haven't seen that video, it was a 16-year plan that they implemented, starting with Obama. They were going to have Hillary take the second 8 years, and by the end of it, the United States, as we know it, would have ceased to exist. Because that's what they were trying to do. They can't implement their global agenda as long as the United States has the power and wealth that we do. And that's what they were taking away. They were slowly draining us. They were rendering our military impotent so they could take over the country and use it as just another one of the global pawns. That's what was happening. Trump knew that. Trump saw it. And that's why he needed to step in. That's why he felt he had to, because we would not have had a country left. So this is their newest attempt. I mean, the Green New Deal was a big attempt, but this one, even bigger. When you take down the borders of a country, it is massive because, I'm not saying all immigrants are bad. I don't believe that at all. And, I was a French and Spanish teacher, so I have a heart for people who speak other languages and who have other cultures. It's just kind of part of who I am. But I also understand that the United States is a country in and of itself. I would never have dreamed of going to France and tried to enter the country and live in the country illegally. I can't imagine doing that. It would never have entered my mind because France has laws. Spain has laws. Mexico has laws. And every country out there has laws as to what it takes to become a citizen. With us, we have laws that determine what it is to be a U.S. citizen. And there are a lot of perks that come with being a U.S. citizen. Not everybody should have those perks because they are exclusive to being a U.S. citizen. That's part of what it means to be a sovereign country. And this is what made the UN people so ticked at Trump when he declared us that, a sovereign country, and we were going to stay that way because that's not what they want. They want a global world economy so they can manipulate everybody. Well, anyway, this particular act, like I said, you can go through and you can read this, but there are a lot of things to it that are very distressing. Let me play you a short little clip. This was one that he did then on the 7th, which is Friday, which is when I'm recording this. So let me play this short little clip, part of this, and I'll leave the link to this down below so you can watch the whole thing. But here you go.
Carlson tonight. Last night on this show, we told you about what may be the single most extreme and disruptive piece of legislation ever to gain widespread support in the Congress in the history of this country. It's called the New Way Forward Act. It's before Congress right now and has been for almost 2 months. And yet so far it has been essentially ignored by the country's major media outlets, which are either too embarrassed of it or too ignorant to cover it. That's a disservice to you because it's really impossible to describe just how radical this bill is. If passed, it would remake our immigration system for the express purpose of helping foreign-born criminals live here. The bill would allow people who've committed serious felonies in other countries to move to the United States legally. It would make it nearly impossible for federal immigration officials to detain immigrants, no matter how potentially dangerous they are. And, perhaps most infuriatingly and remarkably, it would require taxpayers to transport deported criminals back into the United States. In other words, you break our laws, you hurt our people, we'll send you a plane ticket. We'll pay for you to come back. It's utter and total insanity. And yet it's very popular in the Democratic Party. So far, this bill has 44 Democratic co-sponsors.
So, it really is something that we should be aware of. And like I said, I'll put the rest of this down below, the link to it, so you can go ahead and watch it yourself. The clip for the other one, I couldn't find it on YouTube, so not sure where it's at. I even went to the Fox website, couldn't find it there either. So likely it's under, you have to be like a member of the Fox Nation, and it's under a paywall. So anyway, this is the Immigrant Justice Network page. And of course, they're talking about the New Way Forward campaign. Oh, yes, here it is. And this García guy is the guy who introduced it. He's from Illinois. And you've got some of the main players that you know and you've heard of before. But here's what it's going to do, at least according to them. It's going to reduce mass incarceration by ending mandatory detention and banning for-profit immigration jails. So they're not going to incarcerate anyone who crosses the border illegally. Think about that, folks. Allow immigration judges to consider a person's individual circumstances during deportation proceedings, allowing more people to remain with their families and move forward with their lives without fear that an old offense could lead to deportation. So you can basically come here, you can commit a crime, and then you can live happily ever after because you don't need to worry about ever being deported because you committed crimes. This is really serious. In other words, illegal immigrants would have more rights in our country than you and me. And that should be disturbing to all of us. And then it goes on and that allow independent federal judges to review certain decisions of immigration judges that the 1996 laws unfairly tried to remove from judicial oversight. In other words, legislate from the bench. That's what they want. Federal judges to make decisions that are legislative and instead of actually just upholding the law. That's what they want. And end federal prison sentences and criminal prosecutions for people who cross the border seeking freedom, safety, opportunity, or to reunite with their families. Okay, how many of the drug cartel people are they going to send over here and they're going to say, oh, I'm here for freedom. I'm here for safety. Yeah, that's just not going to fly. How do you know that's why they're here? Well, we'll just have to take their word for it, won't we? Advance racial justice, and I'll get to this in a minute, the whole racial justice thing. Yeah. Address obstacles to equal justice in the criminal legal system by limiting deportation for drug convictions. Yes, heaven forbid that we should deport anybody because of drug convictions. Let's just let the drugs come in. We don't care. Really. Who with a brain looks at that and says, yeah, that's a good idea? And other offenses that result from enforcement that disproportionately targets communities of color. And again, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Protect communities and local resources by ending the harmful practice of local police acting as deportation agents or carrying out mass deportations with ICE. Yeah, let's stop ICE from doing their jobs. And then, of course, this one is the one Tucker was talking about. Allow people previously ordered deported to apply for the opportunity to come home. And we'd foot the bill. Isn't that nice? Okay, what's really interesting here is that they worked on this thing called Fix 96. And it was a call to challenge the two immigration laws signed during who? The Clinton administration in 1996. Who signed them? Clinton. He's the one that signed them into law, but now they don't even want that. This is how far the Democrat Party has gone. They've gone from Clinton enacting these, and it was Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act and the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act. And what do? Now they don't want those at all. And Clinton's the one that signed them into law. But, oh no, we don't want that. We're going to dismantle the systems that criminalize and incarcerate immigrants. So it will no longer be a crime. We've heard them say this on stage when they were at the debates. They all want to decriminalize coming across the border illegally. That would not be illegal anymore. Can you think of the ramifications of that? Just for a moment. Think about it. Do you understand what position the drug cartels have in Mexico and in other countries in Central America? I mean, they are running these countries. I did some study because one of my novels is set in Honduras, and I spent a little bit of time in Honduras several years ago. But it's so much worse. It is so controlled by the drug cartels. It's incredible. When the drug cartels kill people, they can't prosecute them because if they do, the prosecutors end up dead. And many of them have lost their lives trying to prosecute somebody from a drug cartel. It is insane. So I have no doubt that there are people from Honduras who are trying to get here to save their lives, but you got to know who's who. How do you know who this person really is and what exactly their purpose is for coming here? So anyway, of course, they want everybody to get there, and that's kind of Their group, it's time to end immigrant criminalization. That's what they're after. I wanted to show you this. This is the one that I came across first, really, when I was looking into it. And this comes from Ayanna Pressley's House website. Here's the deal. The problem, according to them, is discriminatory policing practices. Practices like stop and frisk, broken windows policing, and racially driven vehicular stops can lead to deportation. Racial profiling results in unequal rates of arrests and funnels people into the deportation system. Gee, heaven forbid we should have people who are here illegally being arrested. Oh my goodness, we don't want that, do we? No, because they vote Democrat. I'll tell you what, if they voted Republican, they would be so against illegal immigration. And of course, a black person is almost 10 times as likely as a white person to be arrested for these things. Maybe it's because they're doing it more. No, it's not a matter of, them being innocent and being caught on those things. It's that more of them actually do it. And that's, an inconvenient truth for the left. They really don't want to deal with that. And so, it goes through. Dealing with drug offenses could result in devastating immigration consequences, including deportation. Although only 7% of non-citizens are black, they represent 20% of people in deportation proceedings on criminal grounds. It's like, well, maybe because they're the ones doing the crimes. This is the problem. They always blame it on race, and it is not. Oh, I wanted to even tell you this here. They are accusing Rush of all these outrageous things. And of course, like I told you in the last video, they're accusing him of being a racist and everything. Just, sad. I'll put the link to this down below if you want to see that one. But anyway, back to the insanity. And that was part of the insanity, but this is more. And the Latinos with the X there are imprisoned at 1.4 times the rate of whites. Well, this kind of points out why we need the immigration laws, because they're the ones doing the crimes. So, they assume that it's done illegally and that it's unfair. Well, maybe it's because they're actually the ones doing more crimes. They can't even accept that. And, of course, profit and perverse incentives drive detention. They're trying to say that all of these prisons where they put them, that they are for-profit prisons, and that's why they're doing it. For profit. Yeah, I'm sure that's why they are. And, of course, mass detention is mass incarceration. Immigrants wear the same jumpsuits and shackles, are subjected to the same coercive techniques, including solitary confinement, and suffer physical and sexual violence, despite broad partisan consensus that it's time to reduce mass incarceration. I'm kind of thinking it's not broad partisan consensus there. I would like to see the data to back up that statement. Immigration detention has become the fastest growing incarceration system in the U.S. because they keep coming across our border because y'all are lying to them. The Democrats lie to them and tell them that they can come up here. They don't seem to care what happens to the people. That's the problem right there. They don't care that 80% of the girls and women who make the trip up to the United States border are going to be raped along the way. They don't seem to care about that. It infuriates me. They don't care that little kids are being trafficked. They're being used by drug cartels to get people across the border. That's all they're being used for. And then once they get here, either they are sent back and they keep doing it over and over again, the same kid, they recycle them, or the kid is put into slavery up here. Yeah, what a life for these kids. And it's because the Democrats keep telling them that they can come up here. Sure, they lure them up here for that purpose. It's disgusting. It's actually disgusting. And of course, ICE has the power to detain many immigrants, often without a bond hearing, for the duration of their deportation proceedings. Well, yeah, because they did something illegal. They came across our border. And, they're having these problems in there. Well, maybe if they wouldn't come up here, they wouldn't have those problems. So this is the thing. The people from Central America are being sold a pack of lies by the Democrats just to get them up here. And it's wrong. It is so wrong of them to do it. And of course, judges' hands are tied by what? Laws? Judges have to actually follow laws. Oh no, they can't just make them up as ever they want them to be. So that's what they want. They want to make it so the judges can pretty much do whatever they want. Yeah, well, how has that worked out? Many convictions within 7 years of entering the U.S. make a green card holder subject to mandatory deportation. Oh my gosh, somebody with a green card has to actually follow our laws? Or they get deported? Whoa, what a concept! Oh, I just can't even imagine this. It is so insane. So anyway, I'm going to leave this down below. You can read through it yourself, and they consider it excessive punishment. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Cruel prosecutions, harsh prison sentences. Yes, they broke the law. That's what happens. You go to jail. You go to prison when you break laws. And it doesn't matter if you are legal or illegal. The same thing happens. You go to prison for breaking our laws. But nobody's above the law, right? See, this is it. This whole act right here totally says illegals are above the law. That's what it says. The whole thing. So you can go through again. The devastating consequences. Oh my goodness. It's just, look at all these things that could happen to them if they commit crimes and are deported. And then they go into these stories here, these heartbreak stories. Well, the thing is, they were people with green cards. They committed crimes. They got sent home. And now they're all upset about it. So, yeah, that's what they are. Here's the actual text. If you want to go through and you want to read it, here is the actual text for it. You can see it actually as a PDF if you'd rather see it that way. But here are all the little people that support it. Yep, that's a big chunk of Democrats right there. So it's important to contact your congressman about this, or congresswoman, whichever you have. Make sure that they know what's going on and that they're aware of this and that you stand against it. Because once in a while, they slip them in there. Now, the reason I said it's not surprising, here's one of the comments in it. This is in the text. And there shall be a rebuttal presumption that the alien should be released. So essentially, they're going at it from, guess what? We think they should be released. Everybody should think they should be released. And you have to prove otherwise. Isn't that insane? They came into our country illegally. They shouldn't be released. It should not be a presumption of releasing them. Anyway, you can go on and read the rest of it. It's a bunch of legal speak and all that kind of garbage. But yeah, it's not great. But here are the actions that have happened. It started 12/10 was when it was introduced. And I tried my very, very best to find the time on the floor when this guy announced it, but I couldn't find it. But I did find his comments in the Congressional record here. And so this is what he said. This is the guy who introduced it, García. And he is from Illinois, and it was December 10th when he put it in. Mr. García of Illinois, Madam Speaker, I rise today to support the new Way Forward Act. For too long, unjust anti-immigration laws, including racialized laws dating back to the 1920s, criminalizing migration, and the 1996 laws that entangle our civil immigration system with our broken criminal legal system, have led to overly harsh punishments and the mass criminalization of immigrants. No, it's a mass criminalization of illegals. These laws have resulted in mass incarceration and deportation, separation of families, stripping people of due process, and exacerbating racial animus in both our immigration and criminal legal systems. We must end the labels of the good versus bad immigrant used to dehumanize and divide communities. Well, if they're going to come in illegally, they're committing a crime. So try coming in legally. We will be happy to have you that way. At this moment in history, we are called to uphold our values of compassion, common humanity, and racial justice. I am proud to introduce the new Way Forward Act to disrupt the prison to deportation pipeline, give all immigrants the dignity of due process, and ensure America remains a nation that welcomes all. The bill corrects racial and anti-immigrant injustices embedded in our immigration laws, many of which have enabled the Trump administration's inhumane assault on non-citizens in the United States and at our southern border. Our communities deserve dignity, restoration, and repair, not further criminalization. It's time for a new vision for the future and for our immigration system. It's time for a new way forward. I urge this body to support and pass this bill. Okay, anyway, that's when he introduced it. And again, I couldn't find the clip on C-SPAN, but then it had the sponsor introductory remarks on measure, and then it goes to the House Judiciary Committee, who sent it to their subcommittee on immigration and citizenship. So that was just on January 30th. That's why I said it's really not surprising that nobody's heard of it, because it just got put into the proper committee. So there will probably be debate on that, I hope. They have to. That's where they go through and they do markup on them. It's called markup. So they go back and forth, and that's where, really start heating up. And at that point, I would assume that it'll come out more in the news, or at least in the conservative news. So anyway, here's Ayanna Pressley's website, and of course they're very proud. This is the press release because, they're going to fight criminalization of immigrants. And here's the whole thing if you want to see why they did it and all that kind of stuff. I'll leave the link to that down below too. So anyway, that's what I've got for you on this one. Life is changing, but make sure you contact your member of Congress and you tell them, hey, this bill needs a big thumbs down and you need to be speaking against it. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.